He's 40 feet away near the timeline. Now Jimmer sizing up Moss. Oh, no. Oh, yes! Oh, yes! Oh, yes!
Oh, no. Oh, yes. Jimmer Range is back. More importantly, March Madness is back. The NCAA Tournament bracket has dropped. We're going to go through and break down all of the matchups, game by game, team by team. I'm Carl Heiser, joined as always by my co-host Alex Cervantes. Alex, how you doing?
Fabulous, man. Northwestern is dancing for the second time in program history. I'm about to be done with finals, heading to Cali soon, so it should be good. It's great times.
Northwestern's dancing. By extension, you're dancing because you're going to the game. So.
Correct. We're going to be dancing in Sacramento soon, very soon.
Just some quick housekeeping stuff before we get into the bracket. Jim Boeheim retired.
Yep.
Called it.
Yep.
Chris Beard got hired very quickly after leaving Texas. Can't say we didn't see that one coming either.
Can't say neither of us also called that.
Yeah. Can't say none of us called that. Patrick Ewing out at Georgetown, Passner out at Georgia Tech, Mark Fox out at Cal. So a lot of the expected movement. Mike Bray announced that he'd be leaving Notre Dame. So coaching carousel's in full swing. Yep. A lot of guys are entering the transfer portal, but this isn't the time to talk about that. We'll worry about all that stuff later when it really matters.
Portal combat soon though. Portal combat is soon, fast approaching.
Very true. So as I said, we're going to go through the bracket. We're going to break down the matchups, maybe give some preliminary thoughts and predictions for those of you who need some last minute information filling out your bracket. So Alex, let's talk about it. What's your strategy when it comes to filling out the bracket? Are you going for the big swings? Are you trying to stay conservative to win your pool? Like, what do you go for?
There are a couple. I wouldn't characterize myself as like a big swing guy. I'm usually like, when I think about past brackets I've made, and granted, I know that one seeds have won the last 5 tournaments, but like I generally find myself supporting more of the twos, at least especially this year for me, when like I keep running through the bracket. I keep trying not to like change and be frenetic about stuff. But I wouldn't say I'm a big swing guy. Usually, like, I mean, the amount of college basketball like you and I and a lot of people consume, like I already have the mid majors in mind that I like, and that's just a matter of rolling with them and hoping it hits, you know. But I wouldn't say like, I'm not a big swing guy. More of like a gut, like I've watched this team, or like this team's peaking form, or maybe like like I've toggled with Duke a little bit because like they're almost too hot, you know?
Right.
Like they're almost too hot. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a big swing guy, which probably isn't fun in March, but I do try to play it a little more conservative.
I go in every year and I always end up with one bracket at the end. And like, I don't do that intentionally. I go in thinking like, I'm going to do like 3 or 4, cause I'm sure I'll have some like contingencies for if this team loses, but then I end up selling myself so much on like some of these matchups that I'm like, I just can't see it any other way. Like I'm rolling with this one bracket. I'm living or dying with this one. So that's I'm all for the people who can fill out multiple brackets, but I always end up selling myself on the one because maybe there's a little bit of hubris in that. Like there's only really one true way that this could happen. Of course, that's always incorrect, but such as March, such as life.
March.
Yeah, exactly. So let's jump right into it. We got the bracket. We're pulling it up. All right, we're kicking things off with the first 4. First 4 tipped off a little bit earlier today. Mm-hmm. So those games are going on as we speak. Starting out with Texas A&M Corpus Christi versus Southeast Missouri State.
They're battling.
Corpus Christi, experienced group, made the tournament last year, got here through the Southland. SEMO, though, 6th seed out of the OVC. They play pretty fast. They got some guys who can score. So if they run up the pace, might be able to, pull off. It's sort of an upset. They're both 16 seeds, but I think Texas A&M Corpus Christi is probably the big favorite in this one. So do you see anything with this matchup, Alex?
No, not really, because I mean, obviously I don't think they're going to make it out of the first round, but they're battling right now on True TV. So
I mean, it's a 16s versus 16, so probably not much there, but that's sort of the UMBC effect where now we kind of have to give these guys their due.
I mean, to cap off Alabama's seasons with an upset in the first round in Birmingham would just be wild.
That'd be wild. It'd be a good start to the tournament, though. All right. Some major conference teams: Mississippi State, Pittsburgh, 2 members of the last 4 in. Alex, did you think these guys should have made the tournament? Do you have any of them out? Were you a little surprised at either one of them or not?
No, I wasn't surprised. I would say I was shocked. Like if we're talking about first 4 out kind of thing, I was shocked the committee had North Carolina higher than Clemson, and I was shocked Rutgers was left out considering the committee's past love for the Big Ten, especially considering like most people, I thought that once Rutgers had beat Michigan, they were kind of locked in, whether or not that was Dayton or an at-large as an 11. Pitt, I feel like, shout out friend of the pod, Tristan Freeman, I feel like they deserve to be in. A little bit of the eye test too. I also probably saw them in arguably their best performance of the season when they trounced Northwestern by 29 and made 14 of 22 threes. So maybe that weighs a little bit for me. But Mississippi State, SEC was, again, super tough. So, I'm not one to, like, get up in arms about certain teams not getting in because Clemson, like, don't lose to 18 lose by 18 to Loyola Chicago on a neutral site. Like, I watched that game in person. I suffered through all 40 minutes of that game, and I want to burn my eyes out after. But yeah.
This is an interesting matchup. The winner of this game will match up against Iowa State in the round of 64, and Mississippi State and Pittsburgh are pretty opposite in terms of what they do stylistically. Mississippi State, really defensive-minded team. Not only are they the worst three-point shooting team in the field, they're actually the worst three-point shooting team in the country, believe it or not. But they get by with Tolu Smith, who's been an absolute dog this year. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, much more, trending towards the offensive side of things. Nelly Cummings, transfer from Colgate, averages like 12 points a game. Blake Hinson, Jamarius Burton, both average 15. So their defense doesn't always get it done, but I mean, as you can attest, they can get hot from 3 and cause some problems.
They really can.
So
and they don't turn it over a ton either, which is the bread and butter, obviously, of Iowa State in their no middle. So,
yeah, and if you had told me that Pitt got this far without any real contributions from John Hughley, who just entered the transfer portal, and Dior Johnson, who didn't play this year, I definitely would not have believed you.
Neither would I.
Yeah, so interesting one just because they're so kind of at odds with what each other likes to do. So it could end up being a pretty ugly game, but and the winner plays Iowa State, and that could also end up being a pretty ugly game. As far as my picks go, I had Mississippi State just edging out Pitt because Mississippi State have a top 15 defense, and I think that can go a long way for them.
I had Pitt. Offense wins. ACC.
Offense wins. Yeah, ACC bias. There we go. So we got Texas Southern versus Fairleigh Dickinson, 2 more 16 seeds. Texas Southern made the run out of the SWAC, the 8 seed in the SWAC. They got it done in the tournament. This is their 3rd straight year in the first 4. Fairleigh Dickinson is here through some very strange circumstances. Merrimack won the conference regular season. They won the NEC tournament. But because of the NCAA's stupid and archaic rules about transitioning to Division I, they're not eligible. So Fairleigh Dickinson, as the runner-up, got the bid to the NCAA tournament. They have a really good offense, Fairleigh Dickinson. They have guys who can score as well, but they have the 3rd worst defense in the country. So even though Texas Southern isn't that great of an offense, they play pretty fast, and I think they won't really have any trouble scoring on this Knights team.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I don't know.
It's just wild that both of these teams are here.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. Strange circumstances. So we'll see how this one plays out. This game happens tomorrow. And then the final game of the first 4, we have Arizona State and Nevada. I think this is probably the first 4 game I'm most excited about. Arizona State didn't always play up to their ceiling, but they had some big moments this year. You had Desmond Cambridge hitting that half-court buzzer beater over Arizona, which is an image that I think will endure from this season. One of the best highlights from this season. And then Nevada's I think they're pretty underrated out of the Mountain West. They finished 4th in the conference. It's a tough conference. They lost their first conference tournament game to San Jose State, which obviously isn't great. But I really like Nevada's trio of Jared Lucas, Keenan Blackshear, and Will Baker. And I think that that's kind of a group that Arizona State might have some trouble with. So we'll see.
I agree. Also, Nevada's got a much better offense than Arizona State, and I think their defenses are markedly similar or enough like to where I don't think it makes much of a difference. So I would take Nevada on a neutral site
Yeah,
beyond the reasons you mentioned. Yeah.
Plus Nevada's a team that they don't turn the ball over a lot. Their ball security is good. They're a good free throw shooting team. So if Arizona State keeps it close with their defense, then I think the Wolfpack can pull it out.
Yeah. They don't swarm the offensive glass well. But
yeah. All right, we'll move on to the round of 64 starting in the South region. Number 1 overall seed, Alabama. Alex, what are your thoughts on this Alabama team and their draw for this tournament?
Easily the most complete team in the tournament. They do it all. People are going to say their reliance on threes could be their kryptonite, but it's hard to say that when they've shot below 30% and still won those games against top 30 opponents. So hard pressed to not see a world where they don't get out of at least the round of 32. They've got a really good draw, mostly because I feel like they'll be aided by the fact that the lower seeds in the next pod could very well upset the higher seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, like I think it's pretty favorable because outside of Arizona, all of these teams, the rest of them have incredible flaws that we are all well attuned to. So I would love to see it chalk Alabama, Arizona Elite 8 matchup, but yeah, Arizona's got the best freshman. I mean, Alabama's got best freshman in the country. They hit a lot of threes. They have a top 3 defense in efficiency per KenPom. Like there's really not much to dislike.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll take something pretty special to beat this Alabama team because they'll have the most athletic team in pretty much any game they play. They'll have the best player in pretty much every game they play. Yeah. And if they somehow have an off shooting night, like you said, they have a top 3 defense in the country per KenPom. Plus they play at a blistering pace. So they're just running up and down the floor. Like they're so productive because of that. It's just, there's not many teams that either have the offense to outscore them. We saw Gonzaga do that earlier this year. They had to score 100 points in regulation to beat this Alabama team. Or a team that has, a defense good enough to slow them down while being able to score enough. Like I think you look down a little farther. I think San Diego State, I think that defense could be a tough matchup for Alabama. But is San Diego State going to be able to score enough? I just don't know. So I agree that Alabama has this balance that I don't think a lot of other teams are able to counter. Just with how good that offense is, how solid the defense is, how fast they play, how athletic they are, how long they are. It's going to be tough to take down Alabama, but the teams that will likely get the first crack at that, we look at that number 8, number 9 matchup, Maryland versus West Virginia, my Terps. I think it's a bit of a rough draw. I think West Virginia is a pretty underrated Big 12 team. They got overshadowed a little bit playing in the Big 12 with all these elite teams, but they've been playing well recently. Bob Huggins, I consider him an all-time great head coach. And I think this is a pretty tough spot to be in, but it's 2 gritty teams, 2 good defenses. What do you see with this one?
Oh, I'm just so worried about Maryland that when it isn't the Xfinity Center, man. I feel like I had a stat that I pulled somehow looking over something for the Big Ten tournament, but I feel like when Akeem Hart gets into double digits, Maryland is like 16-3 or 17-3.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, tail of the tape, if you do the rest of the math, they're 4-9 when he doesn't. So a little tidbit I feel like to watch for that game. But yeah, West Virginia, like, the Big 12 is a gauntlet. And so, like you said, West Virginia being undervalued there, they've got Stevenson. Like, Maryland might have gotten a little screwed there just because of, like, the congestion in the Big Ten. Like, someone had to be an 8 seed. But, yeah, I don't – ugh. I mean, also, like, too, like, we've talked about whether or not Julian Reese ends up in foul trouble, So, that's
definitely an X factor for Maryland. Another one for me is just, can somebody hit a 3-pointer on this Maryland team? Like,
no.
That's been something that hasn't consistently been there. The best games for Maryland this year are the games where they are hitting their threes, but Jameer Young hasn't really shot them consistently. He's been a great closer, but as far as the shooting, like the numbers haven't always been there. Don Carey was supposed to be this marksman coming over from Georgetown, and his accuracy hasn't always been there. But yeah, I mean, Hakeem Hart, I would love to see him have a good game, and maybe Maryland can grind out a win. But as much as I hate to say it, I think I'm sort of leaning towards the Mountaineers getting the win here. I think they're more battle tested. I think they're playing better right now. They pushed Kansas a couple of times, and Maryland away from Xfinity Center hasn't been great. We have the great neutral site win. Like, we blew out Miami in a neutral site, but that was all the way back in November. Since then, away from home, we really have not done anything. So we'll move on to the Orlando pod. San Diego State, Charleston. Are you rolling with Pat Kelsey's squad? You've been rolling with them all year.
I'm not, because I was rolling with San Diego State in the preseason, man. And at some point, I feel like we fall into a trap of like the public consensus in these 12-5 games. And I get it. 12s have a propensity to beat 5s. Like, that's the numbers back that up historically. But we are like, we'll talk about Oral Roberts Duke, but like, we're kind of falling into this love with this team. And I love Charleston, amazing offense. Love what Pat Kelsey does, right? But like, I was on San Diego State like a lot of other people in the preseason, and they had the early kind of like slip ups that deterred you a little bit in the Maui Invitational, and then they dropped the game in New Mexico. I remember in January, and so questions could be raised. But Matt Bradley has once again found his form, one of the best shooting guards in the country. Darion Trammell, Lamont Butler, like that backcourt is wicked. Guards win in March. It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
So I think I tweeted something just ironically being like, I can't believe the committee did this to me, pitting two of my favorite teams against one another. But yeah, I feel like the public is falling into a trap with Charleston. Like, I would love to see them make a run or win a game in the dance because they've earned it and they've been really good all season. But just hard to think that this San Diego State team, which won the Mountain West, is going to like falter here.
Yeah. Anytime you see a team with 30 plus wins, you definitely have to give them their respect. And I think Pat Kelsey has done an incredible job. This is a Charleston team that they take a lot of threes. They make a lot of threes. Their offense has been great, but this is probably, unless I'm just misremembering, I think this is probably the best defense that they will have faced all season, and just the best team overall that they faced all season. I think the best team that they've played so far is a North Carolina team that didn't even make the tournament, and they lost that game. So, I like Charleston. I understand kind of the public infatuation with them, and I understand it from the standpoint of the Mountain West has struggled the last few years when it comes to tournament play.
0-8, right?
0-8 in the last 2 or 3 years.
4? Yeah.
Something like that. So I understand from that standpoint, but I agree. I think this is just a bad matchup for Charleston. So I would love to see them pull it out, but I probably won't be picking them to do that. Then we have sort of a similar, it's sort of the same game, just with like different jerseys in that game right below. It's Virginia versus Furman. Virginia doesn't really need any introduction because, I mean, it's been Kihei Clark and Tony Bennett for the last 5 years, basically. And then Furman, really experienced team, Mike Bothwell, Jalen Slauson. They wanted to be in the tournament last year, lost on that heartbreaking buzzer beater in the SoCon championship. Now they're here, really good offense for a mid-major. Do you see things playing out differently, or are you going to roll with the ACC team?
Oh my! I've been on Furman since early in the season. Like what I was sitting in Welsh Ryan for like Northwestern's little March Madness party for the bracket review, and I think I screamed when Furman ended up with Virginia. Like, I was so excited because this is a team, they're going to take so many threes. Virginia has had a propensity to struggle with that this season. And they've given up. Also, this is a Virginia team that lost in Boston College. I want that to be said.
True.
And that was like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So less than. So I am not at all sold on Virginia. This has been a team that has been tailing off since their exploits in Las Vegas. Mike Bothwell, Jalen Slauson, one of the best duos in the country. I I'm super excited for this one. Like I'm totally convinced Furman is going to pull this one off. So I'm sure I'll be wrong and Virginia will win by 12. But
Yeah, I mean, it's really tempting because Furman, as you said, great team, and Virginia, when they aren't winning the national championship, they're losing in the first round, pretty much.
yes,
Like that's kind of been the trend for the last 5 years, and that's just because of the style they play and the personnel that they currently have. Where I think I'm a little more prone to doubting them, as much as I love Tony Bennett, but we saw in the ACC championship game, this team really struggled to score. They had 7 points 10 minutes into the game, and this Furman team they're gonna score on the pack line. Like I promise you that. They're gonna shoot the three.
they're
They
going to
hit a
speed
lot of
them
their
up.
shots. And like Virginia just doesn't have like the way that they play, the way Tony Bennett likes to win games is you limit the possessions and you have guys who are more efficient than the other guys that you're playing.
And you
And
don't
that
have that.
works when you have Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome and guys who hit shots. But I mean, Kihei Clark was like 0 for 8, 0 for 9 to open that game. Like, I just don't know that they have the
I think he
scoring.
finished 1 for 9.
Did he finish 0 for 9? Yeah.
1 for 9,
But
1 for 9.
that's kind of my worry. Like, I don't want to overlook Virginia because I don't think you can ever overlook a Tony Bennett coach squad, but I just don't see like the scoring punch that they need to go on an extended run in this tournament, even if they win the first game.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Yeah, let's move on. This bottom kind of half of the South region, a lot of really good offenses, a lot of offensive talent in this bottom half. We start off with Creighton versus NC State. I don't see much of an argument for NC State winning this game, to be honest. I think the only way they really pull it off is if Turk and Jarkel just pop off, they go supernova. But Creighton has a much more talented roster. I think they've been hitting their stride, like playing better recently after kind of their struggles toward the beginning of conference play. And just the fact of the matter is, like, they have 5 guys averaging double digits. They have 5 guys who can give you 20 on any night. We've said it before. So do you see any more of a chance for NC State than I do? Am I discrediting the Wolfpack a little bit?
No, because I'm with you in that regard. The only thing that concerns me is that Creighton plays Kalkbrenner in that drop coverage and giving that much space. I don't know if they could adjust. McDermott could adjust ahead of this game, but giving that much space to Joyner and Turk to kind of like operate around those DJ Burns screens, little concerning. And but DJ Burns can only go like 25 minutes tops. Like he can't really stick with Kalkbrenner. It'll be a fun battle when they're both on the floor together. If either one ends up in foul trouble, that could spell trouble. But at some point, Creighton's weapons outweigh the guard play NC State has, though NC State could totally rattle. Like Joyner could totally go nuclear. Terquavion Smith has been a bit of a roller coaster of late, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's the definition of a microwave, but I still love him. So then next game, we got Baylor, UC Santa Barbara. Baylor coming out of the Big 12, UC Santa Barbara out of the Big West. Mm-hmm. This is one that people have kind of been looking at sideways. Hey, maybe the Gauchos pull off the upset here. I can understand where they're getting that from. Baylor, their defense is pretty lackluster, pretty suspect, which I think is really strange because – first of all, for Scott Drew team, that's just very abnormal. But second of all, they have guys who can guard. Like, it's not like this is a team of really bad individual defenders. It's just like somehow the collective is not very good. You had guys
in the national championship team 2 years ago with their superb defense.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, like, I knew the defense was a little bit suspect for a lot of the year. But then when Jonathan Tchamwa came back, I thought, okay, that won't totally fix it, but it'll at least make their defense stout enough to kind of get by. And so far, that hasn't really been the case. But this is a team that thrives on like shot making. They get great guard play from Cryer and Keontae George and Flagler. So, that's the type of thing that lets you go on runs in March. I think I still like Baylor to win this game, although UCSB, AJ Mitchell, maybe there is upset potential here.
Yeah, I would second all those statements. All
right, what do you see in this Missouri-Utah State game, the 7-10?
A totally lopsided 7-10 game. Like, it almost feels – I mean, Utah State's not a 10, right? Am I wrong for saying that?
I think Utah State is better than a 10 seed.
Correct.
I'm going to be real.
So,
yeah.
Like – I mean, you can glance at Ken Palm and obviously see that they're top 20, right? Like
Right.
anyone can see
Which
that.
I don't think a lot of people realize, though.
They've got a top 15 offense. They shoot the lights out of the ball. Their effective field goal percentage is like 56%, which is just otherworldly. They shoot 39% from three as a team, which, I mean, I didn't know that was a thing. I've been watching Northwestern build a house recently over the last month. Man, like, Missouri just got a tough draw. And, like, I love Kobe Brown and Demoy Hodge, but, oh, my gosh, this is just – I mean, this game is going to end, like, 90-85, but it feels like a one that Utah State is pretty much going to control.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I think the difference is Utah State's defense. Like, this Missouri defense has not been good, to say the least. Like, it's not one that's really going to hold up under pressure. Like you said, Kobe Brown, Demoy Hodge have been great. This Tigers team has been really fun under Dennis Gates. They put up a lot of points. The offense is there more often than not. But they found themselves in this cluster of teams that can all match what they do offensively and are better on the defensive end. So even if they get past Utah State, then they have a really high-octane Arizona team that can run with them, that can score with them. I mean, even if they get past that, like then you're looking at a Baylor team that's like top 5 in offense, and
or Creighton that can run with you if they want. Like,
right, exactly. So I just think it is a tough draw for this Missouri team, and I do like this Utah State team, which is also a veteran team. Like pretty much their entire rotation is seniors and juniors, and they made that run to the Mountain West tournament final. So that should be – I think that's maybe going to be the most fun matchup in terms of like a viewing experience of this region at least.
Yeah. I mean, selfishly, I'm going to enjoy San Diego State Charleston. But yes, like just for high octane offensive purposes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Then we got Arizona Princeton, the 2, the 15. I mean, we've seen what Arizona can do when they're at their best. They won the Maui Invitational with a lot of really good teams. They won the Pac-12 tournament. They took out UCLA. This is an Arizona team like Tommy Lloyd. Outside of last year when they lost to a really good Houston team, they show up when it comes to tournament play. Like there's something about tournaments that like this Arizona team just gets up for. That front court is phenomenal. I think my one worry with them is like the consistency of the guard play. I just worry that at some point they're going to ask Kirk Kriisa to be the guy to hit the shots, and he's going to take the shots, but you know, maybe the shot selection won't exactly be the best.
Don't worry about it. Courtney Ramey's got it.
Right, Courtney Ramey's got it. Yeah.
If the Pac-12 told us anything, it has to be Courtney Ramey.
Yeah. Kylan Boswell can come in and hit some shots.
No, honestly.
Yeah, so I like this Arizona team, and I think that they got a pretty favorable draw too. I think as far as like the team, they match up pretty well with a lot of these teams. And Princeton, shout out to Princeton for winning the 4-team Ivy League tournament, beating the favorites in the Yale Bulldogs. But I think Arizona probably pulls that one out. All right, as we wrap up the South, what's your region final prediction if you have one?
Let me pull up my esteemed bracket that I'm so confident in. Yeah, maybe I'm just a baby, just a cop out, but I have Arizona beating Alabama.
Okay. I think I got Alabama right now getting out of the South for sure. And right now I'm leaning Creighton to make a run to that Elite 8. I think they can finally deliver on the upside that team has. So we'll see, but this is for those listening, disclaimer, this is first draft. Like I'll publish my full bracket at a later time before the tournament like really kicks off at the round of 64.
This is my like the bracket I'm gonna say I'm rolling with. I have like other contingencies. Like I have Creighton winning a national title in like a different bracket. Actually, I think in our Jimmer Range 2023 bracket pool, I think I have Creighton winning the national title. But no, I have Arizona beating Alabama because I think Arizona's defense is gonna be up to snuff.
Sure.
Come 30 time.
All right, that's the South. Let's move on to the Midwest. On the other side of the bracket, we got the Houston Cougars as the number 1 seed in this region. Alex, how are you feeling about Houston, especially coming off that loss to Memphis in the AAC championship game?
Oh, they're going to be fine. Kelvin Sampson's going to have them locked in after that game. I think I was reading something in The Athletic, but whoever the writer was made a great point that Marcus Sasser's injury, while concerning, is a groin injury that you can A, play through, but B, be healthy for by the first or second game. And like it's not like he broke his leg. So all the like it could give you some pause, but man, they're so tough. They're so experienced.
Yeah.
Shed is awesome. Arsenault's kind of like coming into his own a little bit. They've got a lottery pick in Jarace Walker. The front court is experienced. They're athletic. They force turnovers. They make you wildly uncomfortable in pick and rolls. Like it
Mhm.
is all the makings of a team which should make the Final Four, and it's not no surprise where I believe they're the odds-on favorite, or maybe
Yeah,
it's
that's a good
Bama.
question. I don't know if they
It's
are.
either them or Bama, if I had to guess. But
Yeah, I mean, I would guess Houston is like number one in pretty much any metric that you
good
look at.
metric, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they have, like you said, they have the guard play, they have the defense. Those are two things that you really look for when evaluating teams that can make a run in March.
Yeah, Houston's the odds-on favorite.
Okay, there you go. And if there's one team that I trust to get through an injury to a really important piece like Marcus Sasser, it's Houston.
It's Houston.
They made the Elite Eight without him last year, so it's not like we haven't. And that was a team that didn't have a great piece in the front court like Walker. So yeah, Kelvin Sampson, he's done it time and again. I trust Houston, I do, and if Sasser is healthy, then I trust him all the more. Shout out Northern Kentucky though, number 4 seed in the Horizon League, best defense in the Horizon League, making it to the tournament. Salute the Norse. There you go.
Thanks for showing up.
Next up, the 8-9 game in Birmingham, Alabama. We got Iowa versus Auburn. Iowa's dead to me. I got to be honest. Iowa's dead to me after Fran lost to Richmond in the first round last year, after I picked them to win the Big Ten tournament this year, and they lost their first game to Ohio State, the 13 seed.
Go Buckeyes.
Auburn, and the thing is, like, this is just a game between teams that I don't trust, like, at all. I've talked at length about Auburn's backcourt and how little I trust them, but this is essentially a home game for them. They're playing in Alabama. Like, Iowa has had some notable struggles on the road, so even though I like that offense, I think, Janai Broom could give them some problems, and if KD Johnson and Wendell Green can hit, I don't know, 40% of their shots, 30% of their shots, and they can beat Iowa. They can beat Iowa.
No, this just feels like a peak KD Johnson 18 points on 11 shots kind of game, and Auburn wins by like 12. But yeah, for all the reasons you said, I'm a big fan of Philip Rebraca. Like, I like him as like an underrated big, but
yeah,
I cannot trust the Hawkeyes to do anything of competence, especially on the defensive end. And this is a game where Auburn's going to make them uncomfortable. And if anybody, I don't trust. You can't trust the Hawkeyes at this point.
It sort of comes down to whether like Peyton Sanford has a game where he shoots either 5 for 15 or 10 for 12. Like, it's going to be one or the other, and I think that Iowa's tournament hopes are pretty predicated on how all these guys are shooting from distance. So we will see. Next up, we got Miami going up against Drake. This is another one that people like as a potential upset pick. Drake, according to Torvik, is playing like a top 25 team since February 1st. They got Tucker DeVries. Guy's a baller, playing for his dad. Some like Greg McDermott, Doug McDermott vibes going on. Miami, great backcourt play, potentially without their most important piece in the front court. So do you see potential for an upset? Do you think Miami's built to go on another run? How are you viewing these teams?
Miami is built to go on another run. Plus, they're probably their best NBA talent is their wing in Jordan Miller. And then alongside that, you have your guard play. Wooga Poplar is definitely coming to his own. He's finding his form kind of as March approaches. But yeah, if Norchad Omier doesn't play, like, just hard to believe. Like, I think Miami could still win this game, but it's hard to think that they're getting out of this pod unscathed. And then Tucker DeVries could absolutely hang 25. Although I think it's gonna be an interesting matchup because I would assume Jordan Miller is gonna guard him. But it's gonna be high scoring, I would think. It should be a really fun one. But I'm actually kind of like against the consensus. I think Miami handles this one even without Omier, but that might just be a bad take.
I mean, yeah, we'll see. I understand. Like, they haven't, the defense is maybe a concern, and they've trended down like a little bit recently. And Drake is a really good team, So yeah, it's kind of, we'll see where Omir's at and then kind of go from there. But then we got Indiana and Kent State as the other team in this Albany pod. Kent State, this is another one that I think falls into the like public opinion, not necessarily trap, but there are so many people who are on Kent State.
I'm one of them.
That it may, I think I am too, which I think I would have been no matter who they played. It just happened to be an Indiana team that I've been
that you hate
that I've been hating on all season. So kind of tough, but I've been going back and forth on like, Kent State, really good defensive team. You have Sincere Carey, but Indiana, like they can really shoot the three. Trace Jackson Davis is probably, all things considered, the best player in the entire region. So they definitely have that going for them. And then if Indiana gets past this, they have another, I think, winnable game against Miami and Drake. So I kind of go back and forth whether it's a really good draw or tough draw for Indiana. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that?
I'm just sold on Kent State making it out of this pod. Like I'm totally bought in on the defense getting them through. Mm-hmm. They have the bodies to throw at Trace Jackson Davis, which is huge.
Yeah.
He much like how teams should approach Edey is gonna get his at some point.
Yeah.
And like I'm interested to see how they handle him because he's now such a good passer out of the doubles in the post. But it really is just gonna be like coming down to the efficiency of like guys like Jalen Hood-Schifino, obviously, and Trey Galloway, but also like whether or not Miller Kopp is getting touches at all, or B making those shots.
Yeah.
And then like it really comes down to that supporting cast for the Hoosiers, which has kind of slipped of late. They've also lost 4 of their last. Yeah, they're 4-4 over their last 8 games, I believe.
Yeah.
They're coming off like the Penn State score looks a lot better than it does because they were down like 12 and they hit like a lot of shot. They had like a little late flurry. Penn State wasn't handling the press well. But that was a game Penn State controlled for like 30 minutes. Yeah. So I'm not sold on the Hoosiers, but much like you, if they win this game, hard pressed to not think they win the next.
Yeah, I agree. I think this will be the toughest task they have in the pod, no matter who wins that other game. Like you said, 4-4 of their last 8. They haven't been nearly as efficient away from Assembly Hall, which is in a sense true of like every team in the Big Ten. They've all kind of struggled a little bit away from their home gym. But this is a Kent State team that, for one, you talked about Jalen Hood-Schifino. Kent State is going to throw Malik Jacobs on Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's the MAC Defensive Player of the Year, can really slow him down. And I think JHS is the X factor for Indiana. If he's hitting shots, I think they can go far. But he's been inconsistent when he's been asked to do that throughout this season. So we will see. The Golden Flashes took both Houston and Gonzaga to single digits this year at different points during the season. So this is definitely a team that is built, I think, to reach a Sweet 16. They're good enough to do that.
Yes. And then they could push Houston again.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying then they could push Houston again.
Sure. Yeah, why not? I would love that rematch. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Then we got Iowa State, Mississippi, and the winner of Mississippi State or Pitt. I think if you're going to skip any game in the tournament, this might be it. Like,
didn't you say this last year about Iowa State too?
Who was it though in that game? Iowa State and
oh my god,
who did they play? I don't know.
Hold on, I'll pull it up because I remember. Yeah.
I definitely said it, or it was like a Wisconsin game. I've said it about like Clemson Rutgers a couple years ago. Like there's always one of these games that just like isn't the most fun to watch, like depending on how they match up. But Iowa State, to their credit, they wiped the floor with Baylor this year. They beat them 3 times, and none of those games were like particularly out of their control at any point during the game. Iowa State, though, like great defensively. They throw a lot of different defensive looks out there that make it really tough to beat them. It really just comes down to whether Gabe Kalsher is hitting shots, and I don't really know that Gabe Kalsher is going to hit shots for more than a game.
Games.
So. I don't know. I go back and forth on who I like to get out of this game. I suppose it depends a little bit on whether Mississippi State or Pitt wins, but I'm probably leaning Iowa State. I'm just not really moved by their potential opponents very much.
I'm not either. I like Pitt to beat Mississippi State, but I don't know. Like it would take a phenomenal shooting performance from Pitt to think that they'll get past Iowa State.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if Iowa State plays Mississippi State, I don't think I'll watch a second of that game. Like
Yeah.
that'll end like 45-43.
Yeah.
So
The thing is, like, Pitt isn't a great matchup for, like, they don't match up super well with Iowa State. And Mississippi State is just Iowa State, but with a
from the
worse
SEC.
offense. So,
Yeah.
I don't know, sort of tough there. But anyway, moving on. Xavier versus Kennesaw State. Xavier, despite not having Zach Fremantle, they've looked really good recently. They absolutely trounced Creighton in the Big East semifinals. Kennesaw State, really fun story this year. This is a program that won a single game 3 years ago. And now here they are at 26-8, winners of the ASUN regular season and tournament, beating a team that a lot of people thought would be here in Liberty. I don't see a lot of people talking about this as a potential upset spot. So do you see any possibility of an upset from Kennesaw State?
I mean, always a possibility of an upset.
Right, yeah.
But I'm too sold on Sully Boom and like Colby Jones letting them down in this spot, you know?
Yeah.
Like maybe they drop to Iowa State the next game, but no, like I can't really envision a scenario where Sully Boom and Colby Jones in March let down this team in a first round game.
I agree. There are very few players that I trust more than Sully Boom. So we'll see if that holds up, because this will be his. I don't think UTEP ever made the tournament with
They did
him.
not. They made the CBI or the CIT.
Okay. So yeah, that's what I thought. So we'll see how he responds when it comes to tournament play. But I love this Xavier offense. There are games where they're just so difficult to stop, and then you throw in guys like Jack Nungy, and it's like they just have weapons, the Xavier team. So I do like their chances. I think they got a pretty favorable draw, but Kennesaw State's been surprising all year, so maybe they pull off. They got more surprises to give us. I don't know.
Maybe.
All right, bottom part of the Midwest region. This is such a tough one to get out of. I'm going to be real. This Des Moines pod. Texas A&M, a team that I think is pretty underseeded as a 7 seed. They only lost 3 games in SEC play. They got a great backcourt. Penn State, one of the hottest teams in the country right now, went on that run to the Big Ten tournament final. Jalen Pickett plus a bunch of shooters. I mean, how do you go wrong there? 2 teams that are really hot right now. Do you think either one of them has an edge? You see this as a 50-50?
I see it more as a 50-50. I'm really excited to see how Texas A&M kind of defends Jalen Pickett, because, gosh, I don't remember who I was talking to about this, but he is such a tough scout because, like, or not he is a tough scout, but, like, Penn State itself is, because you either, like, you're going to stick somebody on Pickett and he's going to try and back him down for 5 to 7 seconds in the post, and he's waiting to see if that double comes. And if the double comes, he's kicking it to one of Seth Lundy or Andrew Funk, like, and they're going to knock it down 5 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And the downside I see is that obviously Miles Dredd plays a lot of minutes as the 5. Though I don't think that matters as much against Texas A&M, because I believe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Henry Coleman sometimes plays as the 5 for Texas A&M. So, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's incorrect.
Okay, because, I mean, Henry Coleman's a 6'6", 6'7" forward, but no, it's a really good game. I think both teams kind of got screwed, like Penn State on recent form, and then Texas A&M, like you said, is super underseeded. And regardless, the winner is going to be a tough matchup for Texas, assuming the Longhorns can get past Colgate.
Yeah, I mean, we can just move on to that one. I just have a final thought on Penn State, and I tweeted this out earlier today, but whenever I try to sell myself on Penn State, like, I look at their recent form, I look at how they play, and I can't stop thinking about last year's Virginia Tech team that went on that run. Like Penn State went on a run to their conference championship game. They rely very heavily on the three-pointer. Double-digit seed matched up against a Texas school. Like, there's a lot of parallels here, and I just don't know how much more of a run I can trust Penn State to go on, given that like they were the 10 seed in the Big Ten. This isn't like a team that finished top 3 in their conference. Like there's a reason they had the 10 seed in the Big Ten in the first place. So I wonder if maybe they've already gone on kind of their run. Like if they've made the run they're going to make, and that's
They're
kind
too
of it
hot
for them. So we will see. But moving on, you alluded to it, Texas versus Colgate. I think if any 15 seed pulls off a win, I think it might be Colgate.
Really?
I really like this Texas team. Great guard play. They've, absolutely answered the challenge after Chris Beard was fired unceremoniously from the program. And Roddy Terry has basically no drop off in performance. They've been a top 10 team wire to wire. They've looked really good. They won the Big 12 championship. But this Colgate team, once again, I think they got screwed with their seeding too a little bit. Like this is a team that to me is a 13 or 14 seed, one of the most efficient teams in the country as far as field goal percentage goes, as far as 3-point shooting goes. I think they are statistically the best 3-point shooting team in the country.
They are. And then top
10. So this is a Raiders
percentage.
team, far and away the best team in the Patriot League. They've owned that league for a couple of years. They've got vets. They've got shooting. And if, Texas isn't hitting their shots, then Colgate could definitely take advantage. So do you agree that like this is maybe the best opportunity for a 15 seed to win, or do you see another one in the bracket that you like a little bit more?
I don't know if I like one a little bit more. I'm trying not to like drink the Kool-Aid on UNC Asheville too much and Drew Pember.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this, like theoretically I can see a war. Like if you shoot 40% as a team over the course of an entire season from 3, like that, there's a world where you certainly get hot. And if you're taking, let me find out how many threes they take a game. But if you're taking, I believe it's 34. I mean, you hit 14 of those, 15 of those, like you're really going to be 16. I mean, there's a world where they can absolutely just catch fire and this just becomes an offensive shootout. But Texas probably overwhelms them athletically, I feel like, and enough scores too to kind of put that to bed, especially if Timmy Allen comes back.
That's kind of how I see it as well. I think it is a really tough draw for the Longhorns though. And I think there's a world where if they make it to the Sweet 16, that could be their easiest game of the tournament thus far. Like I think their first 2 games present some really interesting challenges for them. Colgate with what they can do from an offensive perspective. Texas A&M, Penn State both have really good guard play, have shown an ability to be productive offensively as well. So, there's a world where like Iowa State gets to the Sweet 16, and I think Texas would handle Iowa State if they matched up in the Sweet 16. But they got to get there first, and it's a tough road. So we will see. Texas is one of these teams that I know a lot of people are picking to win their national championship, and if they get out of this region, like if they match up with Houston and can take out Houston, Texas has absolutely deserved that national championship getting out of the Midwest. All right, halfway through, let's move on to the East region. This region is headlined by the Purdue Boilermakers, winners of the Big Ten regular season and tournament championships. Been universally labeled, I think, as the most vulnerable 1 seed.
For sure.
By a lot of people. So what do you see as maybe being the reason that people are starting to become
freshman guard play?
On Purdue?
I mean, it's freshman guard play. It's Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer Fletcher Lawyer has really struggled when teams get physical with him, which is kind of a nightmare if you play Memphis or Florida Atlantic. Memphis in the sense that I believe you tweeted this. I don't want to steal your thought, but like Memphis can absolutely get physical with them. Like their guard play is exponentially better than Purdue's. And then Florida Atlantic too is just laden with guys who have played 3-4 years of college basketball. They all relatively play the same minutes. Dusty May is just going to be cooking if they play in that second game. So, yeah, Edey is going to get his. He's the National Player of the Year. He's going to get you like 23 and 11 in basically all of these games. But that being said, if he can't get kind of that secondary support from Mason Gillis and Brandon Newman and Caleb First, like on the perimeter, especially if Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer are struggling, that they're they're in trouble. They're in the mud. And then in the same vein too, like the last team to win a national title with freshman guard play was Duke, and they had Tyus Jones and Grayson Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Two NBA vets at this point, both starting in their respective teams. Obviously, Tyus comes off the bench when Ja is healthy for the Grizzlies, but it's just kind of like apples to oranges in that regard. Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer are not going to the league in April,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if you get physical up with Fletcher Loyer, he just doesn't have the strength right now. He'll get there, and this is going to be a lethal backcourt in a year, 2 years time, but they may not be there right now, which is unfortunate for ED.
Yeah, so then we move on to the 8-9 game, which I think might be the best game of the entire first round between Memphis and FAU. These teams are really good. They're both playing really well right now. Both won their conference championship. I've really sold myself on Memphis in the last couple days since the bracket came out. I tweeted out, I think if you wanted to build a team in a lab that was specifically designed to beat Purdue, I think Memphis is pretty close to the team you would come out with. This is a team with great guard play. Kendrick Davis, phenomenal player. This is a team that they have veterans. They push the pace. Purdue has struggled with pace this year. They full court press. We've seen these Purdue guards really struggle trying to break a press. Memphis does all the things that Purdue struggles with. And so I've kind of already looked ahead past Florida Atlantic, but I can't even do that because FAU is a very, very good team that could also, take out Memphis. It's almost kind of unfair that these teams have to match up in the first round. What's the case for Florida Atlantic for you?
To beat Memphis?
Yeah.
Just that they're, like you said, when Charleston, you just can't ever discount a team that gets to 30 wins, especially in a conference like Conference USA. They had to beat North Texas. They had to beat UAB, And so, I don't know. They just they don't turn it over. They have a super efficient offense. They play defense. They have super smart rotations. Those guys all seem bought into their roles, which is huge come March because the chemistry is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can take Kendrick Davis out of the game, it's their game for the taking.
Yeah.
So
good luck, though.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, absolutely good luck. But yeah, it almost I don't really. And I would like to see I feel like Golden has the size to match up with Edie. He can give him a little trouble in that regard. So I'd like to see that, but yeah, it just Memphis is so hot right now. And that's not to say Florida Atlantic obviously isn't. But
yeah. The other thing for me with Memphis is I talked about Penn State as kind of a team that I see on the end of the run that they're making in a sense. But for me, Memphis is kind of at the start of their run. In the AAC tournament, Memphis got swept by Tulane this year in the regular season. They lost both those games. They came out against a Tulane team that had already beaten them twice and beat them by 40 in the semifinals of the American tournament. And then they go out and beat Houston, who's a number 1 seed. This Memphis team, I think they're healthy now. They're playing, I think, more to their potential. The metrics them. They're really tough. They're athletic. I see the vision with this Memphis team going on sort of an extended run that started with blowing out the Tulane Green Wave in the tournament. So I like Memphis, but obviously we'll see if they get past FAU because FAU, again, is a very, very good team. Here's a game that we really got to talk about, Duke and Oral Roberts. I'm going to give you the floor because, you're a Duke guy. They're really hot right now, but Oral Roberts has kind of been, the nation, what is it? America's team a little bit with the way that people have been covering them over the past month. So break down the matchup. What do you see? And if you want, who do you think wins this one?
Oh my gosh. I think the line's at Duke -7. I see a game where Oral Roberts covers that. This is going to be end to end for 40 minutes, but I also think it's a game that Oral Roberts plays fast. They have they're top 40, I believe, in adjusted tempo. Duke is like sub 250. So I think a slower paced game, I believe, would be more conducive to Duke. But Oral Roberts has the experience. People are going to point to that run from 2021. This team is better in almost like every statistical category than that team is.
Mhm.
And Max Abmas is 2 years better.
Yeah.
This is the kind of game, I mean, I've told people ad nauseum that I know for like 5 weeks that Duke was going to get hot and end up with Oral Roberts because the committee likes to do things like that. Oral Roberts owns the nation's longest win streak. Duke is hot, like at the right time. They've won 9 straight. Obviously, blew through an ACC tournament, handled Pitt, Miami, and Virginia with relative ease. This is also the worst ACC in recent memory, and we're saying that after last year. But like at the same time, like schematically, who defends Abe's miss from Duke? Is it Proctor, who's kind of been your on-ball, like lead threat defensively? Is it Roach because like he fits like the size of it? I don't know how Lively deals with Vanover. Shire's had a propensity to play Ryan Young in minutes longer than he needs. This is a game where that probably isn't conducive because Vanover can stretch the floor in that kind of like pick and pop that they like to run. Can Lively defend that? Lively has shown a great deal of staying out of foul trouble recently. Is that going to remain the case? If so, if he ends up in foul trouble, does Shire opt to go with Young and see what happens, or does he roll with Kyle Filipowski at the 5 and then put just athletes on the floor to try and overwhelm them?
Right.
Because I think in this game, if Lively gets in foul trouble, your best 5 is going to be Roach, it's going to be Proctor, Roach, Whitehead, Mitchell, and Filipowski. Defensively, it creates problems. I really see a world where like Oral Roberts, like wins, like this game is not going to be a blowout in my mind. I worry about for Oral Roberts Duke's size just being too overwhelming, especially on the offensive glass. This is this is the best offensive rebounding Duke team I've seen in my lifetime. They rebound 36% of their shots that they miss, which is just otherworldly. So it's going to be a fun game. I think Duke wins it out, but from like a lot of the Duke fans I've seen, they think they're just going to like roll over Oral Roberts, and that's not going to happen. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be sweating. But yeah, we'll see though. Shire's moment, man, right here.
Absolutely. He's been impressive for me with what he's done from an X's and O's standpoint as of
progression's
late.
Been impressive.
I think that was like maybe the biggest question about Shire coming in. Like you knew he was going to get the guys. You knew the recruits were going to follow him. And so after that, though, it's just in-game stuff. And he's, I think, answered the call in a lot of ways. To the point about Oral Roberts, like I have even harped on the fact that this Oral Roberts team is better than, the one that went on the run to the Sweet 16, but they're not playing that Oral Roberts team, right? Like this is a completely new situation. They're playing a Duke team that's red hot, where it's not just Kyle Filipowski and Ryan Young carrying the team like they were at the beginning of the season. We're starting to see other guys kind of round into form a little bit. Tariq Whitehead starting to play really well coming off his injury. Tyrese Proctor, Mark Mitchell are starting to hit shots, which they really were not hitting at the beginning of the season. Yeah. Duke is starting to become a team that I think a lot of people thought they could be. And Oral Roberts, as dangerous as they are, like you said, I don't know if they have the requisite pieces to really deal with Duke's athleticism and size. So we'll see. I'm really intrigued by this game, though. It's going to be a lot of fun. A game that I'm not looking forward to as much.
The next one. Number 4, Tennessee. Number 13, Louisiana. The Raging Cajuns coming out of the Sun Belt. Not an easy task. There's some good teams in that Sun Belt conference for sure. You got Marshall, James Madison, Southern Miss had a really good year. And Tennessee, without Zakai Ziegler, which I think really will hamper them from an offensive standpoint. But in my mind, their defense should be good enough to beat Louisiana and at least win one game in this tournament. What do you see as Tennessee's ceiling without Ziegler? Do you see them as an early exit, or do you still think they can potentially go to the Sweet 16 and even farther? They can go to the Sweet 16 because that defense can get them through 2 games. I Like they have the physicality and they have the athletes to mess with Duke if Duke wins that game. But yeah, that offense is just not there without Ziegler, and it was kind of the concerns we had in the preseason.
Right.
And like if they play Memphis or even FAU or Purdue, I don't think they win any of those games.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can get to the Sweet 16, Rick Barnes can quell the whole second weekend notion. But it would be ironic if he did it with this team without their kind of guy and Ziegler.
Yeah. Just to talk about the Ziegler thing like a little bit further. This is a team that we've seen struggle offensively, not be super consistent, even when they had Zakai Ziegler. So now without him, my concern is where exactly they go from here, because he really was the engine of that offense. And they handled Ole Miss. Like, Ole Miss was not a team that was going to beat them in the SEC tournament with or without Zakai Ziegler. But then they run into a Missouri team, has a really good offense. They needed to keep pace, and they really couldn't. Like the first team that they played with a pulse offensively, they lost to. So we don't have like a big enough sample size of exactly what Tennessee looks like without Ziegler, but at least the early returns have not been super promising, I don't think.
In fairness, Duke sometimes doesn't have an offensive pulse, so that's good for them.
There you go. So maybe they'll be just fine. We'll see. Next up, Kentucky Providence, the Bryce Hopkins revenge game. Interesting. I was thinking about this earlier. This is a really interesting game from like the coaching carousel standpoint, because I think if Kentucky loses, Cal, there is not a world where Cal is there much longer. I don't see Cal sticking around if they lose in the first round for a second consecutive year. On Providence's side, Ed Cooley is reportedly fielding a few calls about where his next destination might be.
Washington, D.C.
Yeah, potentially Georgetown is where he ends up. So the ink on that contract might already be drying, who's to say, but definitely not something you want to deal with as a player when, your coach might be halfway out the door. I think Kentucky wins this game. I just think they're a more talented team than Providence, and Providence, while they're always ready to play under Ed Cooley. Like, it doesn't matter who they play. They'll keep it close. They'll be competitive. But I just don't think they have the pieces to hang with this Kentucky team. Kentucky will be, superior on the glass. They have Cason Wallace, like who's been playing well, and I think he should be good to go for this game. I don't know. I see this as a Kentucky win. Providence has a chance, but overall, I like the Wildcats to get out of this one. But for me, the biggest storyline is like the stuff kind of on the periphery with the coaching staff and stuff like that. So moving on, Kansas State, Montana State. I've seen some people talk about Montana State as a team that can pull off an upset out of the Big Sky. I kind of disagree. I don't really think the Big Sky is like that. Like this Montana State was here last year. They were a 14 seed. They played a Big 12 team in Texas Tech, and they got killed. I just do not think they're equipped to handle Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson. Kansas State, I think, should roll in this game. I don't really see much room for an upset. So do you have any notes on this one? Seeing anything that I'm not?
No.
Okay.
Also, for the sake of hoping this doesn't turn into a 2-hour-long episode.
Yeah. We'll keep it moving. So next up, we got USC, Michigan State. For the right to play, most likely Marquette in the next round. We'll see. Michigan State, lights out from three. USC, they got the good backcourt play of Drew Peterson, Boogie Ellis. Where are you leaning with this one?
Oh, Sparty, 100%.
Sparty, like 100%, like not even no hesitation.
Yeah, I feel like there's a little too much separation, and then the 3-point shooting come March. Miss me with whole AJ Hoggard, Tom Izzo beef on the sideline of the Big Ten tournament. I feel like January, February Izzo, like it's that time of the year, right, for those John Rothstein tweets. But yeah, it's just Tyson Walker feels like a game where he's just gonna go off the charts. I feel like Hoggard should be locked in.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Hauser, Jay Nakins is awesome. I feel like Michigan State just has too many pieces.
Yeah. USC, they've got guys like they have good backcourt play, but have been sort of uninspiring recently. Like they managed to pick up a win against UCLA earlier this year. Great. They lost to Arizona State in their first game of the Pac-12 tournament. I don't see Michigan State as a team that can go on like a super extended run. Maybe they can if Izzo, schemes up something crazy, but I think it's a similar Michigan State team to last year's team that didn't really have a star. They don't have a Cassius Winston. They don't have a Denzel Valentine. They have a lot of, they have shot makers. They have some like high level role players to me. But
they'll compete though.
I think that they'll compete. Yeah. But I think their ceiling might be limited, but to be honest, this East region could descend into total chaos, and Michigan State might be a team that that comes out of that as one of the final.
They are the harbinger of chaos, actually.
Your teams, yes, exactly, yes. And then we got Marquette, Vermont. Vermont's another team that they've been a popular upset pick in past years. I don't really think this Vermont team is as strong as some of those teams were that people really liked for an upset bid. And Marquette is playing some of the best basketball in the country right now. Tyler Kolek has been phenomenal. Like I've been very surprised by what this Marquette team has done, as has pretty much everybody, because nobody expected them to be that good, losing their two best players last year, not really adding anybody through the transfer portal or any new recruits. It's pretty much the same guys that got waxed by North Carolina in the first round last year, but here they are as a 2 seed. What do you think, the outlook for Marquette is? Do you like their chances to get out of the region?
Oh, love them, because the East is the East is so, like, Kansas State was tailing off at the end of the year, right? Like the Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson punch is awesome, but they've been tailing off at the end of the year. Tennessee is not the same without Ziegler. Duke, if they had not gotten hot, we would not be having these conversations at all. Like, is Memphis really the most dangerous team out of the top half? And if so, that's extremely conducive to a Marquette finish, out of this region. It's why I think a lot of people are taking them. And Tyler Kolek is an All-American, and they have a phenomenal and efficient offense, and they play a scrappy style of defense like Shaka Smart plays. And Texas didn't feel like the right place for him. Marquette does. And they've shown they could win the Big East tournament. There's no reason to not believe that they can make a run here.
Yep. And on that note, I believe the Sweet 16 and onwards is in Madison Square Garden in this region. We just saw Marquette do their thing in Madison Square Garden.
Alternatively, Madison Square Garden is both Storr South and Cameron North. So
there you go. So yeah, we will see. Do you have a prediction for the final of this East region?
I have Marquette over Duke.
Okay. I'm kind of going back and forth between Memphis, Marquette. Not sure if I have Marquette beating Michigan State. I really don't know what to do with this region at this point, just to be completely frank. So that'll probably be a game time decision for me when it comes to my bracket. I forgot to ask you about the Midwest, so we'll just come back to this really quickly. What was your prediction for the Midwest final?
Houston over Texas.
Okay. I think that's probably where I'm leaning
very
right
based.
Now as well.
Yes.
Pretty easy, pretty quick. But I mean, to be fair, like Houston, it seems like it would be easy to just have the 1 seed like go through the region, but that wasn't really like the easiest call for me to make at all. So yeah, we'll see. All right, moving on. Last region, try to get through it. The West, headlined by Kansas, the defending national champion Kansas Jayhawks, Big 12 regular season champions, facing off against Howard in the first round. Shouldn't really have too much of a problem there. We've talked about, we like this Kansas team's chances to repeat. They're built to do that. Really good team, scoring wings. Jalen Wilson's been awesome. Grady Dick has been great as a freshman. DeJuan Harris does exactly what he needs to do. Not really anything more, nothing less, but that's just kind of what you need, and the team kind of runs itself. Yeah. So we'll move on. Arkansas, Illinois.
Gosh, these two
so
teams.
Funny. This is just a hilarious matchup because either one of these teams, I was doing a TikTok live and just kind of like fielding some questions from people. And somebody's question was just Illinois ? And I was like, that's like the perfect encapsulation of what Illinois has been this season. It's just like Illinois ? Like I think Kevin Sweeney tweeted, Illinois play a normal basketball game, impossible challenge or something like that. Like, I just don't understand I just don't know what to think about Arkansas or Illinois. These are two really talented teams that for one reason or another, whether it be injuries or chemistry or what have you, have not played up to their perceived talent level, their perceived ceiling. So as much as I want to say, yeah, whoever wins this game could definitely challenge Kansas, because I really do think so. At least on paper, they're talented enough to. The inconsistencies are very difficult to ignore. Are you leaning any sort of way with this matchup, or do you see like one team maybe having a higher ceiling, having a better chance to move on in the tournament if they win?
I'm leaning Illinois, which I know is ironic given my love for Arkansas in the preseason. But I don't know, man. To me, they have so much, like Arkansas's talent or raw talent is better, and they have more like, in like a theoretical Kansas versus Arkansas matchup, they have a lot of athletic wings that can frustrate Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, something about Illinois' guys having already been here. You know, like Coleman's played.
Mm-hmm.
Terrence Shannon has obviously played for Texas Tech, made a Sweet 16 last year.
Matthew Myers
won a national title.
Right.
So I'm leaning a little bit with that experience, and then maybe Brad Underwood stoking some kind of fire. But this team could also lose by 25 to Arkansas. So
yeah,
I like this game is going to be so chaotic. It's going to be awesome, but chaotic. And then, ironically enough, these two teams could suit up 2 days later and knock off Kansas.
Right.
So,
yeah, you never really know.
You never know what you're going to get.
Might as well coin flip with these teams. Honestly. And whatever their games are. Next up, we got St. Mary's as the 5, VCU as the 12. I like St. Mary's a lot. This will be a really fun, like, defensive game. Maybe a little bit of a rock fight, but St. Mary's has a decent offense. Like, Aiden Mahaney can hit shots. VCU, they have Ace Baldwin, who can kind of be a catalyst on the offensive end. But what do you think about St. Mary's or VCU?
VCU presses and St. Mary's doesn't handle that well. That's how I'm analyzing this game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leaning VCU to win?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on VCU.
On the ground.
Out of the A10, which has been garbage this year.
It has. But just simply on the grounds that VCU presses and St. Mary's has shown an inability to break presses this season.
All right, fair enough. I mean, VCU, St. Mary's is, I don't think they're top 10 anymore, but they're like top 15 on KenPom, which is pretty crazy.
Let me pull it up. Can't confirm they are 11th. Wow.
Yeah. So that'd be a pretty early exit, but I totally see the vision with VCU pulling off a win here. And, as the cliche goes, you got to have at least one 12 over 5, Gotta. You just gotta. You just have to do it. And we got UConn, Iona. I've seen a lot of people talk about Iona potentially pulling off an upset here. I do not see it whatsoever. Nope. I don't see it at all. And some of the same things at play with what we talked about with Providence, where Rick Pitino potentially halfway out the door, maybe fielding calls for another job, maybe not. Who really knows? But all that noise certainly isn't helpful for an Iona team that wasn't super consistent like this year. They just had weird games. They lost by like 30 in one game to Quinnipiac. Like they're talented, sure. Like they have guys who hit their free throws, which will come in handy in a close game. But I don't even know that this will be a close game. Like UConn to me is so far superior to this Iona team that I don't really see a chance.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I'm writing UConn in pen for the next round.
UConn,
we'll take
NBA guards,
we will see.
Adama Sanogo.
Yeah, great front court, good guards. I think the thing that might limit UConn is the lack of like a true playmaker. Like maybe Tristan Newton steps up and is that guy. But as far as this first game, I don't think that'll really hold him back.
UConn guards in the 21st century in March. What more can we ask for?
Indeed. Next up, TCU 6 seed versus the winner of Arizona State and Nevada. TCU, Eddie Lampkin, no longer with the Horned Frogs. I think that really hurts them moving forward, even if they have the backcourt of Mike Miles and Damian Baugh fully healthy, especially if they play like Arizona State, Nevada. They both have guys who are 7 foot. I think that presents some pretty clear matchup problems for TCU. specifically Will Baker. Like, I don't know how TCU plans to stop Will Baker if they're playing Nevada. And then Nevada has the backcourt play to match up with TCU. So even though I think, like, on paper, if you look at the metrics, like, TCU clears both of these teams, I'm sure. But just with the things that are going on with that program, I don't necessarily love their outlook moving forward.
I like the Wolfpack here.
You do? Yeah. I'm kind of selling out to the Wolfpack. And I'm a little scared at how many Mountain West teams I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, given their recent history, but I see the vision. I do. I'm not going to lie.
Got to buy into it, my guy.
Yeah. But maybe Mike Miles masterclass for a couple of games, and then suddenly TCU is in the Sweet 16. There's definitely a possibility, but
it gets rocked by UCLA.
Yeah, it gets just absolutely smashed by UCLA. Gonzaga, Grand Canyon.
Bryce Drew,
excellent work getting Grand Canyon here as the 5 seed out of the WAC. Really good offensive team, the Antelopes. They shoot the three ball pretty well. But if there's one team that you don't want to get into a shootout with, it is Gonzaga. Since February 1st, Gonzaga is scoring an absurd 133 points per 100 possessions. Number one offense in the country over that span by a wide margin. Number one team in the country since February 1st per Bart Torvik. Gonzaga, I think, rolls in this one. And I think the fact that I don't think there's much pressure on Gonzaga, to be honest with you, in this tournament as a whole, not coming in as a number one seed, maybe a little bit overlooked. They've had their fair share of struggles this year, but they've still got a veteran group of guys who can go on a run. Drew Timmy's still there. Rasheer Bolton's still there. Julian Strother, like, they've got dudes. So I think your Gonzaga's path to the Final Four is not that crazy.
Nope. It's not wild at all.
So your preseason take that this is the year that Gonzaga gets over the hump. I don't know that their defense is necessarily where it needs to be, but also looking at their draw in the West, I don't hate it.
If any year where we're going to break KenPom historical trends, it would be this year.
Right. Yeah.
This is 2014. We're going to get a UConn outlier.
If you have KenPom pulled up, where is Gonzaga?
They're 77
in terms of defense. 77?
Yeah.
So then that'll be like the threshold that everyone throws out there for.
No, I mean, it'll be theoretically they won a national title. They should finish top 50.
But it'll be funny just because the net will be cast that much wider. And then.
Oh my God. Yeah. All the TikToks next year. So these are the 17 teams that can win the national title.
Yeah, Ryan Hammer's going to have his hands full with that TikTok. Absolutely.
But if you take out the outliers, 2014 UConn's offense and 2023 Gonzaga.
Yeah. Gonzaga definitely equipped, I think, especially in the West. Kind of ironically, but I think their draw is pretty favorable to getting to Mark Few's a lock to get to the Sweet 16, like pretty much every year. They've gone to 7 straight. It's just what they do. It
truly is.
All right, Northwestern Boise State. You're going to this game.
I am.
Big rock fight.
Going to be in Sacramento. It's going to be, first to 40 wins.
Yeah.
No, this game is going to finish with under 60 possessions. It's going to be brutal. Just doing some preliminary pregame digging. Chase O'D is just shooting 30% from the field since the start of February. On 140 shots. So he's shooting 30% from the field. He's shooting 30% from the field and has taken more than 10 shots in all but one game. So
now he's having to go up against a Boise State defense that isn't going to do him any favors as far as getting good shots up.
That switches everything. That makes it incredibly hard. These two teams, defenses are nearly identical. Boise State already holds teams to 31% shooting from three. Northwestern on this season shoots 32.1%. They're going to need a Ty Berry masterclass. Chris Collins said post-game after the loss to Penn State that he was going to have to reevaluate some things offensively. I don't know if that means the ball is going to be in the hands of Brooks Barnhizer more, who has really rounded into form for them as kind of a secondary scorer. I don't know if that means they try to switch up things, try to put Bowie in some other actions. But Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting battle, but it is gonna be low scoring. Claw your eyes out. Like we'll see. It's gonna be late into the game, one possession. So
Yeah. Then the last matchup of the first round in this bracket, we made it.
Whew.
UCLA, UNC Asheville. UCLA, I think a couple weeks ago, would have been on my short list of national title contenders, but after losing Jalen Clark, who is not only their best defensive player, which is a big deal for a team that is, I think, the number one defense in KenPom right now. He's also their second leading scorer, so he's involved in pretty much everything they want to do on both sides of the ball. And this is already a UCLA team that isn't super deep. They really only play like 6 guys, and granted, like their best 5 at this point are better than pretty much any other team's best 5. You still have Tiger Campbell, you still have Jaime Jaquez. Bona will hopefully be healthy. You have Amari Bailey. Like, it's a good team, still a good team. But as far as like the depth goes, I'm a little concerned. The defense could take a little bit of a step back without Clark.
Yep.
UNC Asheville, Drew Pember is him.
He is.
We've said it before. So
I have.
The Jay Billis and Ryan Hammer video highlighted UNC Asheville as a potentially dangerous 15 seed. So maybe they take advantage of UCLA's shortcomings on, if there are any on the defensive end without Jalen Clark. But it looked like, based on the Pac-12 tournament, it seemed like it was business as usual for UCLA. Up until Arizona, they didn't really have too big of an issue without Clark. So I think they should be fine in this one. But moving forward, once they face like a really good offensive team like Gonzaga, I think Clark's absence will probably be felt at that point. All right, we made it through the bracket, Alex. We made it. So
We did.
Last one. What is your region final as of right now for the West?
Gonzaga over UConn.
Okay, I have Gonzaga and UConn in the Elite Eight, but I'm not quite sure which one I want to pick yet. Not quite sure. So
I just
there
got
it
to roll
is.
with priors.
Yeah, got to roll with your priors. Always stick to your guns. And then who's your Final Four national champion? What do you got?
I guess so. Yeah, the Final Four would be Arizona, Marquette, Houston, Gonzaga,
Mm-hmm.
and then I
That's
have
a lot of offense. Wow.
I know. I have Tommy Lloyd beating Mark Few in the national title game.
The narratives would go crazy.
The protege becomes the master.
Was Tommy Lloyd the mastermind at Gonzaga the whole time?
Was he really? Oh my God, that article would go crazy.
Yeah, which is just hilarious, like from the standpoint of Mark Few literally being in the national championship game. But yeah, Tommy Lloyd was the one pulling the strings.
Yeah.
So as of right now, I'm leaning Houston, although in the back of my head, I keep thinking about how we discussed Alabama and just the monumental effort it's going to take to beat that team with what they have on both ends of the floor, plus the pace they play at with their athleticism. They kind of just have everything you want. And as much as I would like that not to be the case, I think they have a good shot. They have a really good shot, I think. So
I also might talk. I might go back because like Gonzaga Houston is one like I really wrestled with.
Mhm.
Like how much would Houston's like athleticism and pick and roll defense upset Gonzaga's guards who have been like turnover prone at times.
Right.
So
because then I have to think about there's
that.
no team that has like an ironclad resume at this point. So
I mean, yeah, it's almost
like,
Alabama, but yeah.
Yeah. I think back to like Gonzaga, it's like they lost to Loyola Marymount at home. Like that happened this year. So
It happened.
I mean, yeah, tournament play, all bets are off. It's going to be crazy. There's going to be stuff that we don't expect for sure. Do you have any final thoughts, Alex? Thank you to everybody who stuck around for the almost full hour and a half. But Alex, let you get your final thoughts out.
Yeah, just praying Northwestern wins a game and I don't travel out to Sacramento immediately after taking a final for the Wildcats to lose.
Yeah,
but
stay there for 2 games at least, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be there regardless. Got the hotel through Saturday night, so I'll be at the Saturday game, just whether or not I'm crying during them.
Nice.
Yeah, I just hope I don't end up on as like the new Northwestern meme.
True.
Don't
True. My final thought is just what my subtitle says. Please, Maryland, do something. I'm cautiously optimistic, but we will see. What I would love more than anything, though, is to pick Alabama to go to the Final Four and have Maryland be the one to take them out. I would love that. That would be a lot of fun for me. My other final thought is to anyone watching or listening who has not signed up for our free bracket group. We have like 500 people in there. So
I know.
Would be a lot of fun.
Crazy.
There's still some time to join if you're watching this before the start of the games on Thursday. As long as it's before 12:15 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday, you're good to join. You just got to like follow our socials, subscribe to the YouTube, join the group. It's Jimmer Range 2023. Password is Jimmer. Pretty easy. We just got up to over 300 subscribers on the YouTube, so big shout out to those of you who followed the channel. We're going to start, pumping some stuff out. We're going to have some fun shows, I think, for the end of the year. Usually this is the time where our old takes get exposed, our good takes get celebrated. We'll do an awards show probably once everything is said and done. So looking forward to that. So anyway, thank you again to those of you listening, watching. Sure to follow anywhere at Jimmer Range Pod, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Subscribe to YouTube, follow the Spotify so you don't miss an episode. And for Alex, that is going to do it. It's March. We'll see you soon.